Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another polymer clay jewelry video at keepsakecrafts.net. In part one of this two-part series, I showed you how to make polymer clay toggles that are actually focal points and pendants for necklaces. Today I'm going to show you how to take your toggle and toggle bar and turn them into a necklace. So here's the toggle that I showed you how to make last week, and obviously it's not going to go around the back of the neck as just a basic clasp. This is a focal point. It's just a fun way of using findings in a different way. And here's the other one that I showed you that is all completed into a necklace. It's really rather fun with just some beads and beaded chain, and the toggle has dangles hanging off of it. And it uses a combination of your jewelry making techniques. So as I'm sure you can imagine, the first thing I did was went through all my beads and chose the colors that I wanted to go with it. Now for this one, I went with these rose quartz beads and then also bright silver and some sparkle to go with the little rhinestones that are in the flower centers. So I went with bright silver here. But for this one, the first thing I chose were these crystals, which are kind of a smoky color, but they have the purple in them. And then I decided from there to kind of focus on grays. So I have some gunmetal type spacers, some gunmetal hearts, which I thought were really cute, some brighter silver hearts, but they're not too bright, and then also just a few leopard skin jasper beads. I also pulled out some purple Swarovskis. I just had a whole bunch of kind of odds and ends of Swarovskis in different shades of purple. And then I pulled out these fuchsia beads because there is the fuchsia and the little flowers that we put on the toggle. And I thought they might be pretty. And what was interesting is I have these in 6mm and 4mm, and the 6mm were just way too much, too strong. But look what happens when I just sprinkle some of the 4mm in there. They just look really pretty. They add just some pops of color and really tie it all in together. So what I want to have is somewhere around 16 inches of beads, and that's where one of these bead design boards is fantastic because I can look at it and get some pretty good approximate measurements. Now what I want to do is actually mix all these up. I also chose some chain, but we'll use that in a minute. You'll find these little plastic scoops in the jewelry section of your craft store. I should do a Friday Findings video on them because although they seem very basic, they come in a set of 3. They are wonderful. It was a stocking stuffer my husband gave me a couple years ago, and I use them all the time. They're just really useful. So what I'm going to do is take all these beads and I'm going to put them on one of these little velour beading mats. This is my method for mixing up beads. I can sometimes be really, I don't know, just a little too concerned about mixing things up and getting them spaced just right. So I try to do it so that it comes out a little more random. I'm going to fold this velour piece in half and just send all these beads out into one channel of my bead design board. Now, this may not work to completely randomize them because some are heavier than others, so you may end up with more on one end. But I found it helps. Like I said, if you're too much of a control freak when it comes to randomizing things, you might find it helps to do it this way. Okay, you know, I'm really loving those little pops of fuchsia and the Swarovski sparkle. I think that's great. This is looking like somewhere around 20 inches of bead. So then I'm going to cut myself a nice long piece of bead stringing wire. If this is 20 inches, I'm going to cut this about 30 inches because this will actually be 2 pieces of bead stringing wire. I'm going to add a bead stopper to one end and then just string all of these onto my wire. So I've strung all my beads on. I really love the look of this, the gray with the pinks and the lavender and the fuchsia. Very happy with that. Now it's time to make a hole in your pendant, and you can see I did that on this one. What I've used to go through that hole is this. It's actually a very fine coil of very fine wire. It's called French wire, And I've done a Friday Findings video on it, and you buy it like this, just in a length. And it's a coil that you can use to cover bead stringing wire, and it helps protect it, and it just is a really nice finish. So I'm just going to take a little 1/8 inch drill bit. This goes into the chuck of a power drill, but you can drill polymer clay very easily by hand. And I'm going to start by deciding where I want my hole, and I want it kind of centered on this lobe, which is a little close to this flower. Make sure you don't have it too close to the edge, or you might blow that out. So I'm going to have it about here. It's always a good idea to start it with an awl. You don't have to press real hard, but just make a little point to start, and that will keep your drill bit in place. And then I put my drill bit in there and just drill out that hole. Like I said, polymer clay drills really easily by hand, and I like to go back through the other side and sometimes kind of move it back and forth and while you're twirling it, just to clean out the hole. And I've got my French wire here. This is a coil of wire, so if you pull on it or yank on it, you'll distort it, stretch it out, just like a little itty bitty slinky. So do be careful with it. So I've got the long end of my string of beads here. And the first thing I need to do is put on a crimp. Next, I'm going to just go ahead and slide this through the hole. To figure out how much I need. This protects not only your wire, but it protects your polymer clay. It keeps your wire from eventually cutting through the clay someday, and keeps your wire from being abraded as it goes back and forth. Although in this case I think probably the clay would be the thing to lose. This French wire, as I mentioned in the Friday Findings video, comes in different diameters. This one is 0.9 millimeter. So it's just right. So you may have to, if you have different size drill bits and different size holes, you may have to coordinate that. Now I'm just going to put the wire back through the crimp. You may take a little bit of fiddling and finagling, but what you eventually want is a nice teardrop of your French wire looped through the hole of your polymer clay piece. I won't torture you with making you watch me fumble. There we go. And now I'm going to use my one-step crimper to crimp that crimp. You can leave a little bit of room for a crimp cover. This is probably one of the more fiddly parts of the whole operation, as you can tell, and I'm kind of a fumble fingers. You make sure you give it a tug. You don't want to go losing your pendant and your whole string of beads here. So always give it a tug. That's looking nice and secure. Trim off that excess short end of wire. And I have some kind of cool gunmetal corrugated crimp covers here. And I don't use crimping pliers for the crimping. I love my one-step crimper for that, but I do use crimping pliers to pick up a crimp cover because it holds it perfectly without making things difficult. So you just slide that right over your squashed crimp. Compress it gently. And now I'm going to slide down half of my beads. And slide the other half down to the bead bug that's here. And then the remaining wire I'll just cut in about half. Definitely had plenty of extra, and put a bead clamp, and I put a clamp on this end because I dropped these things and I spent all that time stringing it. I don't want to have to do it again. So we'll set that aside for the other side. And here's the chain I've chosen to go around the back. And then this you can put through some more of your French wire. Always a crimp first, And I don't, because this is just going around a bit of chain, I don't have to measure it like I did here where this was a really thick piece and I wasn't sure how much I needed. I'm going to cut off about 3/16 of an inch. Somewhere around 6 or 7 millimeters. If you're not doing US measurements. But the more sensible millimeters, I think. There's that. That goes through one end link of your chain. And just like on the other side, it goes back through the crimp. Pull it up and fiddle with it till you have a nice teardrop of your French wire. Leave a little room for a crimp cover. Crimp it and add your crimp cover. So there's that side all strung on. And now we're going to make the dangles that come off our toggle. And one thing I forgot to mention is that you should set aside some of your beads that you think will work nicely for the toggle. On this one, I use these little pressed glass hearts and some of the other sparkles that were in the chain. I actually forgot to set some aside and ended up having to restring this, pull some off and restring them. And you just want some head pins and whatever other little beads you want to make dangles. So we'll do some of these crystals, and I've got a few of these small beads. So just string yourself 3 little dangles. They don't have to be particularly long, half an inch, probably an inch at the most, because we're going to put them on chain to make them really dangly. So here you can see I strung my dangles, and now I'm going to use the one-step looper to make them into dangles, but you can also just use round nose pliers and wire cutters to make loops. If you want to learn more about this awesome tool, the one-step looper, which just, you can see how fast this is. It just makes the process really fast. I mean, you really ought to know how to make a good loop, simple loop with round nose pliers and wire cutters. But this is great when you have a lot to do. It just speeds up the process. And I have some chain for my dangles. And you've seen me use this trick before, where I'm not going to cut the chain off of the long length. I'm going to leave it long. Use chain nose pliers to open up that loop I just made and pop on the end link of my chain. And then make sure and close up that loop nice and securely. And it's up to you how long you make your dangles. I'll make them a few inches, just like this one. Maybe 3 inches at the longest. Whatever looks good and looks right in proportion to your pendant. So I'll just kind of look at that and say, okay, that one's going to be about that long. Grab my pliers. And I could have twisted open that link, but I didn't feel like messing with it. Repeat for all of your dangles. And you can have 1, you can have 3, you can have 12. It's up to you. 3 is a nice number though. And here I'm ready to finish up the third one, and you notice I just kind of audition them down here on my workspace and try to get them all slightly different lengths. I think it just makes it look a lot more interesting. So I'll just grab that with my pliers and chomp it somewhere. Real precise. Okay, now we have our dangles made. And the next thing is to make a hole in the toggle bar. Easily done, again, with the drill bit. Start with the awl. The center is good. And make a hole. We're almost ready to string on our toggle bar. But there's a few things I figured out along the way that we need to do first. I'll show you on this one. See that my toggle bar has several small beads right after the toggle. And that's so that when I put it through the pendant and then it hangs, that's what's going around the back. And it's a much neater finish. You can see I just finished with one of those beads peeking out. It lies nice and flat and even. If I were to have some of these beads, it would just be kind of lumpy. So what you want to do is you've got your beads that are going to go around one side of the necklace. You want to just string on probably 5 or 6 smallish beads, like 2 or 3 millimeters. So once you get all those small beads on, go ahead and come through the back side of your toggle. And then just hold on to that, or put a bead clamp on if you don't trust yourself to hold it securely, which sometimes I don't. And just test it. And maybe I'll take one of those off. So 5 seems to be just about right for these little beads. Now I'm going to put on a crimp and the end links of the chain of all of my dangles. Now that bead string wire goes back through the crimp. If you want to here, you could use a wire protector, although it may not fit through the links of chain. I chose a bead string wire whose color I don't mind seeing a little bit of here. And that's probably the easiest way to do it. So then just go ahead and use your one-step looper or crimping tool to flatten that crimp. Always test. It's just so much easier to fix it now than if it falls apart while you're wearing it, or if you're making it to sell and it falls apart on a customer. Not good. So always just test it. And a nice little crimp cover gives it a great finish. And there's that end. And now you just finish this end the same way with a crimp, a little bit of French wire or a wire protector. Then you can check it out, test it out, and see how long you want it to be. Add a clasp at some point in here. Just break up the chain and add a clasp, and your necklace is done. Made with your own very unique polymer clay toggle pendant. And yes, it has 2 closures, a clasp in the back and the toggle in the front, only because the toggle in the front really, to me, is just decorative and interesting, but I do like to make my pieces adjustable so they're just the right length for whatever I'm wearing. So I hope you've benefited and found this video helpful and inspiring and encouraging, and if you have, I hope you'll maybe consider becoming a patron. I always want to keep my videos free for everybody, but it does cost me quite a bit in time and money and effort to put these together, and my patrons are awesome. I love you all. You know who you are, and you really make a big difference in helping me and encouraging me to continue doing what I'm doing here on this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and take a look at my Patreon page to see what that is all about. It's a way for you to give back. If you've benefited at all from these tutorials, it's just a way for you to give back a little something to say thank you and help support them continuing. So happy creating. Bye-bye.